welcome to Prime News. Now look at the headlines. Neurology depth lab at GMC under clouds. Lab assistant turns dalal for private labs. Patient forced for test at private hospital. It's a Prudent expose. Rakta Charitra Part 2. State debt overtaking budget enforcement. Debt crosses 9,000 crore mark. 75% debt maturing in 2016 to 2020. It's debt trap at doorstep for successor. Prudent tracking treasury. Goa police failed to detect even single case of missing child in 3 years. 68 cases registered. Supreme Court and Human Rights Commission guidelines flouted. BJP's Nilesh Kabral Minister Avartan rubbish Tavlikar statement on Hindu nation. Says people will give befitting reply. Deputy CM firm on Hindu Christian. And Elvis Combs elected unopposed as president of GFA. Lavinia Rebello and Schubert Furtado elected vice president for GFA for Bades and Salsett. Now the news in details. Who says government servants cannot work in private organizations? GMC lab assistant of Neurology department takes salary from Goa Government but works for private hospital. He also market for private hospital. The needy patients who visit GMC for medical tests at subsidized rates are forced to visit private hospitals and pay more sitting reasons of workload and time constraint. Here is yet another expose in the GMC through Prudent sting operation. Rakta Charitra Part 2.
Yet again in the state's premier health institute, Goa Medical College, scams and rackets are far from getting over here. Government provides certain tests at subsidized rates to its patient in the hospital. One among it is nerve conduct test. But the lab assistant at GMC Neurology department sees that patient get it done through private hospitals. It has become a lucrative business for hospitals and the dalals too. Prudent was on its mission since last 1 month. Prudent's team entered the ward for the test. Here is the conversation.
Yeah, कौन patient? तू patient diabetes?
म्हणजे पाय में होता है.
हाँ, तू का diabetes?
पाय में
किती वर्ष आले?
वर्ष म्हणजे आलीच कळली ती. त्या नाईट शिफ्ट बी नसताना.
खंय रावता तू?
हांगा म्हापशा रावता.
हांगा मरे हांगा टेस्टिंग करता. हांगा भायले प्रायवेट हांगा करता ते 1200 रुपया रेट घेता.
कितें म्हणटालो?
हांगा डेट रेट. हांगा अरावंड 20 दीस लागतले हे करपाक.
टेस्ट करपाक. आनी म्हणजे बेगीन कितले?
प्लस हेका 1200 रुपया हे आसले काय?
तशें न्ही. हांगा कितले रुपया पडटले?
कितें?
पयशे?
हांगा 1200 रुपया.
हांगा 1200. म्हणजे
नाल्यार आमी भायर करया मरे सर. वृंदावन करता.
वृंदावन? खंय म्हापशा?
ना हांगा सर सांताक्रूज.
सांताक्रूज वृंदावन आसा?
ते हांवच म्हणजे हांव थंयसर आसता.
तशें न्हू. तुमी केन्ना हेल्प घेवंक शकतात तर? तुमी आसतले थंय?
आमी आसता.
कितले रुपया थंय?
1,500.
1,500. कितल्या दिसांनी रिपोर्ट मेळटलो? म्हणजे हांगा
4 दिसांनी.
कितलो टायम लागतलो?
एक पावण तास लागतलो. 1 वर लागतलो.
1 वर लागतलो टेस्टी?
1 वर कमी लागूंक शकता पूण चडांत चड 1 वर.
चडांत चड 1 वर न्ही. बरें 4:30 येवं हांव. कितल्यांक म्हटलें? 4:15
यो. हांव 4:30 म्हटल्यार पावतलो. तुजे 5:30 म्हटल्यार काबार जातलें.
This is how the lab assistant convinced our reporter, who had posed as a diabetic patient, to get his tests done with the private hospital. But that doesn't end here. The same lab assistant seems employed with the private hospital too. He assures patients not to worry as he would be present there to conduct the test.
डॉक्टर आसतलो का तुमी आसतले?
आमी आसता. हांगा आतां रेट वाडयला. आतां सगळे लोक चडशे हांगा प्रायवेट आसा ते थंयसरूच प्रिफर करता. हांगा 20 दीस लागतले. हांगा एक्चुअली डेट फुडें पावल्या. डेट सारके नोव्हेंबर डिसेंबर पावल्या. ते थंयसर करता.
Patients who are in urgent need are fit to be bakras of this dalals. He takes advantage of this patient's delay in the test, the best tool to squeeze these patients in need, and see that they get it done from the private labs. The lab assistant delays the appointment. Patient who had visited GMC for test on 1st July 2014 has been given an appointment for the test on 21st August 2015. Even with doctor's note of urgency, the patient has got a date 6 months ahead. The test, which cost around 1,200 rupees at GMC, cost 1,500 at private hospital. Critical patients naturally don't mind spending 300 extra. The deals are ultimately done at government's cost.
बरं कितले रुपया म्हटले तुम्ही
1,500 हांगासर म्हणून 1200 रुपया
हां हां
1200 रुपया
हां
हे गव्हर्नमेंट
गव्हर्नमेंट
थंयसर गेल्यार हांवें 20 दीस हांव वेटिंग लिस्ट आहा प्रायवेट म्हणून 20 दीस नाजाल्यार जानेवारीन पावल्या डेट
हय हांगा प्रायवेटी करता प्रायवेट भायले हॉस्पिटल
प्रायवेट करता चार्ज करता आनी करतलो हांव थंय सुद्दां करतलो हांव
ओके काय प्रॉब्लेम ना न्हू
काय ना.
This lab assistant, a government babu, enjoys the post at the cost of government but with no loyalty to his state, but to the private players in the field. The scams and rackets are far from getting over at the GMC. Rakt Charitra, Part 2. Bureau Report, Prudent.
The state public debt is overtaking the pace of budget enforcement. In the fiscal 2013-14, while the government has re-estimated its budget down to 9,446 crores and actual expected to revise further, the public debt has crossed 9,000 crore actual mark. The milestone, though unpleasant, state is set to achieve it. Moreover, liabilities of the state have already touched 12,000 crore mark. With almost 75% of the debt maturing in the year 2016-2020, the debt trap is at the doorsteps for the successor government. Watch Prudent tracking treasury.
पैशांची चिंता विश्वजितानूय करचे न्ही अलेक्सानूय करचे न्ही किंवा आमच्या बाब विजय सरदेसानूय करचे न्ही पैशाची चिंता हांव करता पैशाची चिंता हांव करता हाजें कारण हांव सांगता जे आंकडे तुमी सांगतात पळय की जे आंकडे तुमी खंयच्यान हाडटा हांव नकळो लोकांनी चिंता करपाची गरज ना स्पीकर सर परिस्थिती बदलल्या अच्छे दिन आ गए.
While the Chief Minister claims no financial and debt crisis, the state's finance account speaks a different story. Though sounds unpleasant, it's an unwanted milestone the state is set to achieve. Prudent has the state's latest debt figures, that is by June 2014 end. In past 27 months, the state had borrowings worth 2,568 crores till June 2014 end, and accumulated debt crossing a 9,000 crore mark till March 2014. With 4,638 crores from market, 906 crores from the centre, and remaining almost 3,500 crores from the financial institutions like the LIC, NABARD, NCDC, PFC, HUDCO and NSSF. That's not all. In the first quarter of the current fiscal, state has already borrowed 367 crores, a trend not usual. This is besides the accumulated liability of over 2,500 crores from the state's public account. The story does not end at this. The maturity of the state debt is next 4 to 6 years, is bound to make financial position more critical. From the market borrowings, 71.36% debt is payable between 2016 to 2020. Liability of the state to repay the debt would be 2,312 crore during 2016-17 and 5,761 crore during 2018-2020. Prudent, through its budget and treasury panchanamas, has been exposing the state borrowing trend for past several years, and now the Comptroller Auditor General too has endorsed it. This is what the CAG says in its latest report. Debt repayment during 2016-2020 would put a strain on the government budget during that period and may cause the state to borrow further to repay those loans. Story isn't over yet. The government will have an army of over 60,000 employees knocking its doors for the 7th pay scale in the election year 2016-17. state could somehow tackle the 6th Pay Commission pay scale crisis due to extra revenue in its kitty from mining royalty in the year 2006-07. The number of employees has risen from 45,000 to over 59,000 in last 8 to 10 years. With mining yet to resume, that too if resumes to a limited extent, it would further strain the finances, situation the succeeding government will face. Interestingly, 2016-17 would be the last year of the incumbent government, where the debt maturity and repayment will be at its peak and the succeeding government will face the brunt of almost 2,500 crores of debt repayment annually on the borrowings. Chief Minister has all his hopes banking upon the sale of illegal ore in the state's custody. But the targets of the debt repayment and resource crunch seems far more than the reach of the state budget. Bureau Report, Prudent.
Goa police has failed to detect even a single case of missing child in last 3 years. A report submitted by Goa police discloses that total 68 cases of missing child have been registered in last 3 years. Shockingly, Goa government has totally ignored guidelines of the Supreme Court and National Human Rights Commission to deal with the cases of missing child. Watch report.
A report submitted by the Goa police before State Human Rights Commission about missing child raises an alarm. Report discloses that in a small state like Goa, about 2 children go missing every month. But what it can be termed as rubbing salt on one's wound, that Goa police has failed to detect even single case of missing child in last 3 years. Not only Goa police but Goa government too seems deaf and dumb in this matter, as guidelines of Supreme Court and National Human Rights Commission have been totally ignored in the state. Working for a moment to trace missing child, social activist and advocate Satish Sonak says that 68 is a number of the reported missing child, but actual number may be much more.
68 children are missing from Goa or kidnapped from Goa in the last 3 years and not a single child traced. If you see the age of these children, some children are as small as 18 months. Number of them are girls. They are from all over Goa. We owe them something.
Some of the important guidelines of the Supreme Court are: publish photographs of the missing child in newspaper and promptly telecast photographs not later than 1 week of the receipt of complaint. Said photographs should be given wide publicity at railway stations, bus stands and regional passport office. National Human Rights Commission has also issued some guidelines. Every police station should have special squad, missing person desk. Incidents of missing children should be reported to National Commission for Protection of Child Rights within 24 hours of occurrence. Outsourcing preliminary inquiry to NGOs. Identify children who are abandoned, neglected and vulnerable. Issue identity card for children. Advocate Satish Sonak feels that there should be a centralized investigating agency to investigate the case of missing child, as kidnapped child are actually trafficked out of the state.
This is an interstate and an international phenomenon. Just the local police in Goa will not be able to do much. Either the matters have to be given to the CBI will not take it from the Goa government. Every time we cannot go to the High Court for a direction. So we need some kind of a law.
Reporter Mukesh Kumar with video journalist Omkar Falari for Prudent.
It's time for a short break. Stay tuned.